Hey y'all, welcome back to Sentro School. In today's video, we'll be learning how to completely take apart the Sentro, clean it all up, grease it, and put it back together again. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Let's start with gathering everything we'll need to service our machines today. First, you'll need to get some sort of lubricant that is safe for plastic. This is super important because you don't want your lubricant to eat through your machine, which is entirely made of plastic. I'm using Superlube O-ring silicone lubricant today, but there are others that should work just as well, such as Superlube's multi-purpose synthetic grease, which is a PTFE lubricant. Other PTFE lubricants should also work. The silicone-based WD-40, as well as other silicone-based lubricants, should also be fine to use on your machine. And let me know in the comments what type of lubricant you use on your Sentro if you use something that I didn't mention here today. You'll also need a cloth or two. I've got a microfiber cloth here, but you can use any cloth that you want. If this is the first time that you're cleaning your Sentro, then I'd suggest having a couple cloths on hand. The first time I cleaned my Sentro, it had so much old grease buildup on it that I went through a few cloths to get it totally cleaned up. Next, you'll need a small screwdriver. I'm just using the one that came with my Sentro. And finally, you'll need a few bowls to keep all of your smaller pieces organized. I like to have 2 small bowls for the 2 types of screws and 1 medium bowl to hold all of the pins. Now we can get started actually taking our Sentro apart. So we're going to start with taking out these 4 screws on the inside of our machine. So just grab your little screwdriver and take out each of these 4 screws. And into a little bowl it goes. And there is my 4th screw. Now we'll turn this over and we'll take out all of these screws in these little holes here. So again, just grab your screwdriver and take out all of these screws. You can leave the ones that are on the legs though, just the ones that are in these little holes. And I'm gonna put them in a separate bowl just so I can keep the screws separated from each other. All right, I have all of my screws in this little bowl. And now we can flip our Sentro back over and we're ready to take it apart. So we'll start by taking this white bit off first. Kind of have to move the handle off of it a little. There we go. And just remember to be really careful as you are taking everything apart, and then again when we are putting it back together. If something feels like it's stuck, then don't just yank at it, just kind of work it gently until it comes off or it gets put back together, you know? Just be gentle with it because you don't want anything to break. So now we can take our microfiber cloth and just clean off this whole piece. And then once you're done wiping off that piece, then you can just set it aside for now. Next, we'll take off this bit with the ridges and just make sure that it's not getting caught on any of your hooks as you take it off. It comes off pretty easy though. But again, it's just good to be careful. And again, we're just gonna use our cloth to wipe it down and get all of the dust and any grime off of it. And then once you're finished wiping it all off, then you can set it aside. Next, we'll take off this bit that goes over the pins. So this you have to be a bit more careful with than the last piece because it can get caught on the pins a lot easier. There we go. And we'll just wipe that down. The next piece that we'll take off is this kind of gray colored piece. And again, just wipe it down all over on the top and bottom. Set that aside. Now we'll grab this white bit from the middle, Slide that out. And again, just wipe the whole thing down. And now we can start taking out these pins and cleaning those. So these are really easy to take out. You just grab it, it comes right out. They are not in there very tightly. So you're just gonna wipe down the bottom of them here. The top of the needle shouldn't be, too dirty, but the bottom here will likely be a little bit more dirty. So just take every single one of these out and give them a good wipe down, and we'll put them in a bowl. Next, we'll take this black part off. And this will likely be pretty dirty. It'll probably have a lot of grease on it. So, just do your best to wipe it down and get any dust and yarn fragments off. Any, areas that have a lot of built up oil, I would wipe that down too. And this one might take a little longer to clean just because it's got a lot of nooks and crannies on it. And finally, we'll clean the base here. So this one also can be pretty dirty, and it has a lot of little areas in it. If you are finding that it's difficult to get in there with your little towel or cloth, then I would just suggest using some Q-tips to kind of get into these smaller areas, because it can be kind of hard to get in, around all these little things here, or in these little small areas in here. So a Q-tip can work really well, but mine's not too dirty, so I think a little cloth or towel will work just fine for me. Now that we are done cleaning everything, we can start putting everything back together, and we will grease everything up at the same time. So the first thing you'll want to put a little bit of oil onto is the wheel here that is attached to the handle. And then crank your handle just to spread that out evenly. And you don't need much, just enough to make this turn really smoothly. So that's perfect. Next, we're gonna wanna put just a little thin layer of oil around the outside of this black bit here. We don't need to put any in these grooves because we're gonna add some to our pins later, and that will get some oil into these grooves. So don't worry about that right now. So I'm just gonna put some oil on my microfiber towel, and then I will spread it, just a thin layer around the outside of this black piece. And you can put the oil directly on to this black piece if you want, if that's easier for you, and then spread the oil around. It really doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're not putting too much on. You just want a thin coating. So once you have a thin coating of that oil on this black piece, then you can just put it back in your machine, and you just want to make sure that the groove bits on here, there's a grooved underside. You want that to be facing down because that goes onto this wheel so that you can turn your machine. Next, we can start putting the pins back in our machine, and we're gonna add a little bit of oil to the bottom of each pin. So let me start I'm gonna start with the white pin because this is the only pin that matters where you put it. So you see this little notch here? That is where your white pin is gonna go. That's the only pin that matters where it goes because that little notch is gonna tell your machine when you've completed a row. So your white pin will go in there, but first let's add a little bit of oil to it. So just take your cloth and add a little bit of oil to it. And then you'll just put that oil on the bottom part of your pin. Don't get it on the top part here because that part is gonna touch your yarn and you don't want any of this stuff on your yarn. So just on the bottom part here. And then we're gonna put that pin in that spot that I just showed y'all, the one with the notch, and put the pin in there so that the hook part is facing out towards you, and just slide it in, just like that. It's really easy. And then all of the pink pins, they'll just go in all the other spots. It doesn't matter, they're all identical, so you just fill up the rest of this black bit here with your pins, making sure to add a little bit of that oil to the bottom of each one. Once you have all of your pins in here, then we can move on to this white piece. So we're gonna put a little bit of oil along the outside of this white piece. Don't put any on the inside though, because this part is gonna end up being open to the world and open to your yarn and your projects, and we don't want any grease and oil to get on our projects. So just put a little bit on this outside part of this white piece. So once you have a thin coating of oil along the outside of this white piece here, then we can go ahead and put it into our machine. So we just want to make sure that this arch here lines up with the arch that's on the inside. There we go. And these little pieces should line up so that we can put our screws in here later. Next, we have this gray piece, and to be honest, I don't really know why this piece needs oil on it, but mine had oil on it when it came from the manufacturer, so I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on the top here, because if they put it on this piece, then I'm guessing it needs it. I don't really know why, but you know, I thought I'd just throw that out there, that I will be putting some oil on here, even though I don't really know what purpose it serves. So I'm just gonna put it there while I get a little bit more oil on my towel. And I'm just gonna put it on the top here, because that's where the oil was when I got it from the manufacturer. So once you're done putting the oil on this gray piece, then we can put it back on our machine. And you see this notch here? That is gonna go over this little notch that indicates where the white pin goes. So put it over. So now we are done with our oil, so we can put that away. So this next piece is probably the most difficult piece to get back on your machine. This piece goes over your needles, so start with the needles that are already sticking up a bit. Get this piece around those needles first. Then once I have it, you know, sort of on these needles here that are sticking up, then I like to just crank my handle and work slowly to get each needle in its little spot. And don't force it down, because if you do that, you're just going to end up breaking something. So take your time with this. It is a little finicky, but I promise you'll get it. Just give it a little bit of time. All right. There we go. Next we have this piece with the numbers, and you just need to find number 48 and put that over your white needle. Just like that. And now we have this final piece that's gonna go on the outside, and just put that over top of everything. And again, just be gentle with everything. Make sure you're not, you know, forcing anything down, and it should just fit in here very nicely. Now we can go ahead and screw this all together. So let's start with the ones that are on the inside here. And I have my little bowl that has my 4 screws in it so that I know these screws go to this area. And I like to screw each screw in just a little bit at a time and then go around until they are tightened. And you don't need to go crazy with tightening them. Just, make sure that they're tight enough that your machine isn't going to come apart. Now we can flip this over and put the remaining screws in. And when you put these screws in on the bottom, just make sure that your Sentro isn't separating between this white and pink part here. It likes to do that when you flip it over when there are no screws in it. So just hold the top and bottom together with one hand and then put your screws in with the other. And again, I like to go and just tighten each screw a little bit at a time and then go back around and tighten them up completely, going in a circle, not doing one super tight at first and then adding them. I like to do it just a little bit at a time on each one. All right, now we can flip this back over and we are all done. Your machine should feel so much smoother when you're knitting now. And if you notice any resistance, then I'd suggest just taking it apart and putting it back together again. It's possible that something may not have lined up exactly how it needs to, so just go in and give it another try, putting everything back together, and it should be totally fine. The frequency that you'll need to go in and clean out your Sentro like this really depends on how often you use your machine and what kind of materials you're using. Some yarns just shed a lot more than others, so the best way to tell when you need to do this again is to just pay attention to how it feels when you're working on your machine. And if you start to feel like your machine is turning more slowly or it's more difficult to crank your handle, then it's probably time to clean it. I know it's scary taking your machine apart for the first time, but hopefully this video gave you the confidence to dive in. It's truly a lot easier than it seems, and as long as you keep your parts organized and you're fairly gentle with all the pieces, then even if you make a mistake while putting your machine back together, it'll be totally fine because you can always redo it. So that's all I have for y'all today. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, then remember to give it a like and consider subscribing for more Sentro videos. Thank you so much to my channel members for your ongoing support. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.